So let's look at a general overview of segment 3. First, we'll take I-45 that goes on the west side of downtown, and we'll move that to the east side, parallel to I-69, parallel to I-10 then on the north side to reconnect with I-45. That gives us the opportunity then to either remove or repurpose the Pierce Elevated, and it takes I-45 and that traffic and puts it all on the east and the north side, giving us a easier mobility and an enhanced mobility connections between the interstates. We'll also continue to have downtown connectivity on the west side through the downtown connectors. The project also gives us a great opportunity to incorporate drainage improvements and enhancements that will lessen some of the flood events and better control stormwater runoff. So some of the key takeaways that I want to talk about is I-69 up on the east side as you go by Minute Maid Park. We're going to actually straighten that out as you come into the interchange. It will now be the I-45, I-69, I-10 interchange. Similarly, I-10 up on the north side by U of H downtown, we'll be able to straighten it out and again, improve the connectivity and the mobility aspects. Some of the other components will be by depressing I-69 from Spur 527 all the way to Buffalo Bayou instead of the up and down that it does today, gives us the option to put caps to connect 3rd Ward, Midtown, downtown, and downtown in Edo. So now we'll have not only better connectivity between the community, but destination places that you might be able to come. So let's talk about construction, phasing, and the implementation, especially around downtown in segment 3. Project 3A begins at Spur 527 into SH 288. Elevated section today will now be taken and be depressed below ground. That project is slated to start in summer of 2026, and it's around a $600 million project. Segment 3B1, so 3B has two components. 3B1 is first the drainage component of St. Emmanuel along McElhaney to Buffalo Bayou. That project is actually the first one that will be implemented, and we'll talk more about in the segment 3B session. Segment 3B2 will be the interchange then with I-69, SH 288, and I-45. That project is slated to start in March of 2025. Then we have the components of 3C1 through 3C4, which run along I-10. 3C1 beginning on the east side from Gregg Street to Wago Street. We hope to put that out into construction in 2027, and that is a reconstruction and widening of that existing facility. 3C2 will be the large interchange with I-69, I-45, I-10. We look to go out to a design build contract again in 2027 with that interchange. 3C3 will be from White Oak Bayou to McKee Street. That's the realignment of I-10 through and around the U of H downtown facility. And that project is about $250 million, and we believe we could accelerate that piece into summer 2026. And then 3C4 is the remaining west side interchange of I-10 and I-45, taking you north of Quitman, west of Houston Street, and also bringing you into downtown, reconnecting the HOV and the metro facilities into and out of downtown. So an important part of our meeting is to talk about proposed design changes. Segment 3 is the only segment that has design underway currently in various parts of that segment. And as that, we want to talk about some of the design changes that we are proposing or have been incorporating, many of which would still be subject to a future reevaluation, and we would talk about again at future meetings. In segment 3A specifically, what you'll see is the first and foremost item was the extension of Cleburne to connect 3rd Ward to Midtown. We heard from stakeholders, we heard from the management districts of the importance of that element, so we are now going to continue Cleburne, and that has also given us an opportunity that at Cleburne and Alameda have an additional cap structure. And the other second thing that we've looked at when we talk about caps is at Caroline Wheeler, we always had a cap structure of about 410 feet. Working with the management districts and with the city, we're looking now at an opportunity of 1,000-foot long cap that goes from San Jacinto to Austin and creates a larger space there for the community and for interaction. And then westmost on that piece at Fannin and Main Street is our cap with the LRT. The LRT component in Metro, as they cross under I-69 today, will now cross over. And so with the tracks and the reconstruction of the Wheeler Transit Center, we have a greater opportunity to enhance the connectivity for pedestrians and users in those facilities. And then the fifth opportunity that we have, in the FEIS, the frontage road went from Alameda southbound to Caroline. We've now been asked to look by the management districts in the city at stopping that frontage road at Cleburne Street. And then the sixth item is we had a northbound frontage road from La Branch to Alameda that, in working with the city and the management districts, will actually remove because of the awkward intersections and the complications of that piece of roadway. Will now take those out, and it gives us greater opportunity to extend our bicycle pedestrian enhancements through that same right-of-way area. And then the seventh design change in segment 3A relates to the specialized walls. We have a high groundwater table, and so as we go to press, we actually have to use a unique retaining wall design that is a diaphragm type wall that's buried in the ground and sealed off then from the groundwater. This will be the first application in this area of this wall type, and as we get further in final design, there are potential areas of additional increased right-of-way. I talked about working with Metro, so I want to go a little bit more into to what we've been doing there at the Wheeler Transit Center. So with the facility change of the highway, instead of going over the transit, going under, we are now going to reconstruct the Wheeler Transit Center, and we're also going to add a third track to the components of the LRT, which helps us then keep those operations going during construction and better address the community's needs and lessen the impacts of the construction activities. So we've talked about caps. What is a cap? Segment 3A actually has 3 of the 5 potential caps in the NHHIP. And a cap basically is, as we go from elevated to now depressed, we not only connect the roadway that brings the community together from one side to the other, we have the opportunity to increase the concrete surface and space that gives us a larger area that can be repurposed for many different community needs. That's what we get into and call the art of the possible. So once these caps are in place, there's great opportunity then for what they could be, what we could put on top, places for children to play, places for you to recreate, with places for you and your pets to get exercise, places to come and have theater and art events for the community. So at this point, what we would like you to actually do is give us some feedback. As we work with the management districts in the cities, we'd like you to take a survey. You can either put your mobile device over the QR code that's on the screen, or you can look on the taskbar of the Zoom to the Art of the Possible link, and then take this survey and give us some feedback. Segment 3C3. Proposed design changes in the corridor along I-10 that we call Segment 3C, made up of 4 projects. Specifically, as you look to the west side, Segment 3C3, it's 3C4. We have the work where we realign I-10, as we said, in the U of H downtown campus area. Working with U of H downtown, working with the city, we actually have some great opportunities to improve the design. First and foremost, with extending North San Jacinto Street up to meet Providence and Rothwell, which serve as frontage road activities along I-10. So that increases that downtown access. The other thing is, between that point where we bring San Jacinto up, now taking Naylor Street, making it 2-way between San Jacinto, Main Street, and the access to the U of H downtown campus. That really helps us with the entire street grid network that'll be underneath the elevated freeways in that area. The third thing we'll do is specifically extend that into U of H downtown property, and where we today will impact some of their parking, we'll actually replace and use areas under the elevated roadway for parking, providing opportunities then for providing opportunities for students and faculty to park and access the school. We've also worked with U of H downtown on the detention facilities there, and the fifth item of the proposed changes there is to use a joint access pond in that area. The sixth design change I'd like to highlight is at the railroad, where I-10 and I-45 today cross under and over the Union Pacific Railroad. In the FEIS, the Union Pacific Railroad was actually proposed to be raised several feet. What we've done in working with Union Pacific Railroad is actually going to maintain the railroad at the same elevation and take all of the roadways over the top, which lessens and eliminates the impact outside of the freeway right-of-way. And then the seventh item is all the way along White Oak Bayou and Little White Oak Bayou, in those stretches along I-10, we will add additional trail paths. So today on the east side and north side of White Oak Bayou, there's trails. We'll add those to the west side and south side and increase that connectivity, mobilities for bicycles and pedestrians as well as vehicles. Toward the east side of the project along I-10, the eighth design change that we've looked at specifically in response to stakeholders and feedback during the FEIS period was to add a Gregg Street exit. So from IH10 now, we will be able to exit directly to Gregg Street. The ninth change on the other side of I-10 is to take the frontage road that previously stopped at Meadows and then pick back up at Jensen and make a continuous connection past I-69. And then Nance Street in the FEIS was proposed to end as the interchange and the new Rothwell alignment came up to Jensen. As our 10th proposed design change, we're actually going to take Nance Street and extend it and connect it to Rothwell to again increase the flexibility and the connectivity between that area and Jensen and Rothwell. And the other thing that we've looked specifically at, TxDOT has a commitment as they get into final design to look at reductions in the footprint where feasible. As we've looked at 3C and that area along I-10, specifically from east of I-69, so we've specifically identified the opportunity along that piece of I-10 to reduce the right-of-way. We can reduce and eliminate the right-of-way in several parcels along I-10 east of I-69. That actually reduces the number of residences potentially relocated or impacted. We've also identified some isolated areas along I-10 where we can similarly do reductions of right-of-way, or at the downtown connectors where realignment and connectivity into downtown enables us also to reduce right-of-way and potential impacts. And then 3D1, as I said before, 3D1 will actually be the piece where we depress I-69 and I-45 down behind the George R. Brown Convention Center, Minute Maid Park, and the soccer stadium. We give a real opportunity now for an entertainment space that connects all of those areas in the Edo community and downtown community. As a part of all of these improvements, I want to talk about the drainage improvements. So with NHHIP now, we're going to be able to actually reduce the floodplain along Buffalo Bayou that goes through downtown. We're able to reduce structures that currently get flooded today, and we're also participating directly with our partners, Harris County Flood Control District, City of Houston, in the North Canal projects. TxDOT has put $20 million into the city's North Canal project, which is a bypass to reduce the flood levels along Buffalo Bayou. And then the South Canal component of that, TxDOT will construct as part of NHHIP in our Project 3C2. Additionally, when we look along the depressed sections of I-69, as we go along St. Emmanuel Street, as we go along Hamilton Street, we'll add capacity to improve the intake of stormwater flow. What that means is that water today that may sit on the highways or sit on the local streets or even in properties, more of that water will be taken and stored underground in large 12 by 12 storm sewer boxes that then over time can be released to the bayou. The first project that we're going to do on 3B1 is actually a storm sewer improvement along St. Emmanuel that puts that 12 by 12 box component in and reconstructs the roadway street. We will actively stay engaged with the public throughout that design and construction of that project. Okay, I've given you a lot of information on segment 3 overall. We have staff available to respond to questions, and we want to give an opportunity for you to submit questions. We also ask you to stay tuned for the next session where we'll go into more detail in segment 3B, the first projects that are going to construction.